And there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another incredible installment of Cowboy State Politics Live. From very high above all the puerile and bombastic twits in the Wyoming mainstream media, this is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. I'm back from the Christmas holiday. I trust everybody had a fantastic Christmas. The lovely Christine and I absolutely did. It was a boatload of fun. Neither of us got out of our pajamas all Christmas Day. It was fantastic. I've got what I think is a pretty funny story about our Christmas a little bit later on in the program I'll tell you about. But first, it's Open Line Friday. That's right, my friends. Open Line Friday on Cowboy State Politics Live. Now, here's the rules. Normally, during the week, you kind of have to talk about what I want to talk about. Yeah, if there's some off-the-wall topic, I'm probably not going to answer the phone. But on Open Line Friday, we talk about whatever you want to talk about. And, it is a lot like rolling the dice. You never know what you're going to get. But it is the rules, and it is Open Line Friday. So if you want to be part of the program, go ahead and give me a call. The phone number in the studio is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989. Open Line Friday on Cowboy State Politics Live. Well, over the holiday, actually maybe just yesterday or the day before, the media picked up on a video that was put out by the Wyoming Freedom Caucus. Now, of course, the Wyoming Freedom Caucus is now the majority, I don't know what you want to call it, majority conservative party, but it's not really its own party. But I guess they have the majority in the Wyoming House of Representatives. We'll just put it at that. And they're the conservatives in the House. And, they've got some allies in the Senate. And, there's a big difference if you pay attention to this program or if you just watch. It's as plain as... Ray Charles could see what's happening in the House of Representatives. There are red-coated liberals that the only reason they are Republicans is so that they could get elected. Because everybody knows in Wyoming, if you're a Democrat, it is really hard to get elected. Unless, of course, you live in Sweetwater or Teton County, in which case it's a lot easier. But there's a ton of redcoats, ton of Republicans that... The only reason why they have that R at the end of their name is so that they can get elected easier. Well, the Freedom Caucus and their other conservatives in the House, well, they're on the opposite side of the fence. They're actual Republicans. They believe in conservative principles, and they have taken over the House. And who knows how it's going to end up, but my guess is when everything shakes out, conservatives will have 38, 39, 40 seats, somewhere around there, which means the Redcoats, they are in the extreme minority now. Well, the Freedom Caucus put out a video, and it's talking about what they're calling their 5 and dime plan. And as it relates to that, tomorrow on Weekend Update, I'll have an interview with House Appropriations Chair, incoming House Appropriations Chair John Baer, who also happens to be the former chairman of the Wyoming Freedom Caucus. So we'll talk to him about the five and dime plan, and we'll get all of the details and the inside baseball surrounding it. But for right now, the Wyopile picked up on the video that they put out on the website, and this is written by Magpie Mullet, and I quote, "As the Wyoming Freedom Caucus prepares to assume control of the House in the Wyoming legislature for the first time, the group of hardline Republicans announced an ambitious plan to pass 5 key bills in the first 10 days of the 2025 general session. Quote, "In the last election, you spoke to us loud and clear," Freedom Caucus Chairman Emeritus Representative John Baer said in a video posted on the caucus's website. Quote, "We heard you in town halls and on your doorsteps. What you gave us was a mandate to make some changes in the state of Wyoming." The caucus calls it the five and dime plan. Now, before we go into what Wyopile says about the five and dime plan, why don't we just go ahead and listen to it? I've got the whole video. It runs a little over 2 minutes, so we'll just go ahead and listen to the whole thing, and that way you've got some context of what the Freedom Caucus is talking about. But here's the video.
Of Representatives and the Wyoming Freedom Caucus. Hello, Wyoming Patriots. I'm John Baer from Gillette. I'm a husband, father, grandfather, and a small business owner. I'm a member of the House of Representatives and the Wyoming Freedom Caucus. In this last election, you spoke to us loud and clear. We heard you in town halls and on your doorsteps. What you gave us was a mandate to make some changes in the state of Wyoming. When we return to session in January, we're committed to prioritizing your concerns by passing 5 key bills in the first 10 days. We call this the five and dime.
We heard you say that only Wyoming citizens should vote in Wyoming. The House has a bill for that.
We heard you say that open borders and states that cater to illegal immigrants should not dictate how we do business in Wyoming. The House has a bill for that.
We heard you say that our jobs and our core industries like coal, oil, and gas should be protected from woke politicians in Washington and woke investors in New York City. The House has a bill for that.
We heard you say that our daughters and granddaughters should not have to compete against males for great opportunities in sports, whether K through 12th or at the university. The House has a bill for that.
We've heard you say that you work hard for your money and that you should be able to keep more of it, rather than the state taking care of itself first. The House has a bill for that.
But the House isn't stopping there. We've got dozens of other priorities that the Wyoming Freedom Caucus heard you ask for. You should be able to protect yourself and your family anywhere in the state. We agree. And the House will advance a bill to protect your Second Amendment rights so you can do just that. Wyoming should have the best education in the world. We will advance a bill to provide universal school choice for all families. You should be able to own your property and decide what you're going to do with it. The House will advance a bill to protect your private property rights from climate cult CO2 companies that want to take it away. You should be able to decide if you're going to wear a mask or take a vaccine. You should be able to depend on the government to not introduce pornography to your children in public libraries. You should know with confidence that your vote counts in Wyoming. The House will advance bills that ban ballot drop boxes and criminalize ballot harvesting. We met you at your doorsteps, we heard you, and we're committed to delivering on the issues that matter to you most. Please show your continued support by asking your senator and our governor to support the five and dime and this conservative response to your mandate.
Well, there you have it, the five and dime plan, and that's the entire video. Now, if you listen to it, I mean, it sounds pretty normal, right? Like anybody in Wyoming should be able to get on board with everything in that video. Now, we might quibble about a couple of things, but I don't think, for the most part, I don't think that you'll get too much argument out of normal, everyday Wyoming citizens. But Wyopile does have a problem with it, and I quote, and we'll leave off where it says the caucus calls it the five and dime plan. Back to the piece of trash in the Wyopile. Quote, "It includes legislation to restrict the voter registration process, invalidate driver's licenses issued to unauthorized immigrants by the other states, prohibit diversity, equity, and inclusion programming in higher education, ban state investments in environment, social, and governance funds, and bring back a property tax relief bill vetoed by Governor Gordon this past year. The priorities of the caucus are not surprising. All have either made previous attempts at unsuccessful legislation and rules or been the subject of campaign promises in the 2024 election. The priorities, however, reveal where the interests of the caucus diverge from that of the governor, whose supplemental budget request, which, by the way, is 2.5 inches thick and has everything in it, including the kitchen sink. The governor's budget request is ridiculous. And let me just pull out the soapbox for just a second. Wyoming works on a biennial budget, which means that we pass a budget for 2 years, not 1 year. And I don't know, in the last couple of years, it seems that the governor has been trying to move us towards an annual budget, because we'll pass a gigantic biennial budget, which, by the way, the last budget that was passed, I think the budget itself was like $10.5 billion. And then there was another $1 billion worth of spending that was added in various and sundry bills. So $11.5 billion, the largest budget that had ever been passed in the state of Wyoming. And now the governor is coming back with a supplemental budget, which is, another $1.5 billion, $2 billion. I don't even know how big it is. I don't even think it really matters. But the whole point of a supplemental budget, and this is mentioned in the Wyoming Constitution, is for unforeseen things that happen. So, for example, this past summer, we had a whole bunch of fires that burned up a crapload of territory. And, it takes money to fight fires. So the fire fund was depleted. Okay, no, who could have foreseen that last winter during the legislative session? Probably nobody. So yeah, we do have to refill that fund in case we have another dry fire season this summer. So we can understand that, but the rest of the things that are tossed into the governor's budget, like $3.5 million. No, I'm wrong. It's like $9 million for the a shooting range at the law enforcement academy. There's money in it for Sheridan College. There is a whole bunch of stuff in there that could be handled with individual bills in the upcoming legislative session. But instead, the governor decided to throw it into the supplemental budget. So don't believe anything that Wild Pile has written about how this is, it's the Freedom Caucus is absolutely disregarding all of the very important things in the supplemental budget. Let me just give you a couple of them here. Quote from Wild Pile. The priorities, however, reveal where the interests of the caucus diverge from that of the governor, whose supplemental budget requests focused on upping various Medicaid reimbursement rates. No, that's a real emergency. Additional funding for the state's property tax refund program. More money for litigating against federal regulations and replenishing funds depleted by the historic 5-year fire. Okay, so historic fire year, not 5-year. But the supplemental budget is only for those things that are unforeseen, the emergencies, the stuff that happens during the course of the year that nobody could have predicted. And certainly nobody could have predicted in last year's legislative session. But the new incoming House Appropriations Committee is, their 5 and dime plan is very, very different than the priorities of the governor. And according to Wild Pile, it's not unusual for lawmakers, particularly leadership, to announce legislative priorities ahead of the session, but rarely have Wyoming legislators coined catchy names for a package of bills or proposed deadlines beyond the existing structures of the legislative calendar for getting the job done, as if that's such a big deal. I think that organization and deadlines are important. Unlike the left has deadlines too, by the way. Don't let Magpie Mullet mislead you on any of this. They absolutely have deadlines. They absolutely have coined catchy phrases. Let's go all the way back to the election and talk about Poisonberry Crago and Chicom Som Albert Somers' conservative commitment to Wyoming. Why do you suppose they named it that? Well, first of all, it absolutely wasn't conservative. Second, most people in Wyoming are conservative, or at least they consider themselves to be. And so it was a message that they thought would resonate with the electorate. It's a catchy name for their dumb commitment to Wyoming, which, by the way, it wasn't conservative, and most of it didn't pass. Most of it got killed in the legislative session. But anyway, Magpie Mullet isn't even close to right about this. And let's see here, and propose deadlines beyond the existing strictures of the legislature. Well, the reason why deadlines are important is it provides a sense of urgency. A lot of times in the legislature, things get pushed. And we end up legislating at the very last moment. It's almost like legislating by procrastination a lot of the times. And with deadlines, it forces you to pay attention to what you have to do and what you have to get accomplished. And there's no reason why you shouldn't have that. Magpie Mullet is just irritated, and so is Wildpile, that conservatives have put together something that will resonate with Wyoming citizens. And, it's about time that the Redcoats get a taste of their own medicine. We'll have more after the break. You are listening to Cowboy State Politics Live on the Independence Network. You're not going to find a better source of news, information, and entertainment than right here on the Independence Network. Now, we're making a few changes, moving a couple things around, out with the old and in with the new, and that whole spiel. Of course, you could listen to my program, The Ramble Room with Ken Pendergraft, Locked and Loaded with the good Representative Tony Locke from Casper. There's a whole bunch more coming on the Independence Network. Also, don't forget to check out the articles section at the website, independencenetwork.us. It's loaded with op-eds, commentary, and news from all around the Cowboy State. You can listen to the Cowboy State Politics podcast anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest place is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles that I might bring up during the course of a program. That way, if your name is Joe Biden and you can't remember if you had your pudding today, well, I probably can't help you with that, but I can definitely tell you why you should have never ran for president. And now, back to our program. Now, probably the reason why the Redcoats are all tied up in knots about this video is they're not the ones that thought of it. And secondly, they're not in control of the House anyway, any longer. They don't get to dictate policy. They don't get to dictate the agenda. And that's why they're irritated. And the only thing that they can possibly find to go after this video is, well, they made this catchy video, and normally we don't do that. And even though our side comes up with catchy names for our plans, the conservatives never do. I mean, this is totally unforeseen. I mean, it's complete idiocy and complete bullcrap. The superficiality of this piece from Wildpile shows you that the other side, they just don't really have anything. They don't have a plan. They really never do, except to spend more money and to further grow the size of government. But if you read into this dumb piece, I mean, it tells you how desperate they are, because they realize that the Freedom Caucus and the other conservatives in the House of Representatives, and that's another point, not all conservatives in the legislature are members of the Freedom Caucus. There are a lot of people who are, largely conservative, who don't join the Freedom Caucus. They're not part of it. They don't have anything to do with it, except, of course, that they're like-minded and they're probably going to vote similarly. Let me just give you a couple of examples. Reuben Tarver from Gillette, Pretty conservative guy. We're not talking about 100% conservative, but, low to mid 80s. So, he's way more conservative than Chi-Com Som, Albert Sommers. And then there's our pal Tom Kelly. Though Tom has a bit of a libertarian streak in him, he's still pretty conservative, and he's not part of the Freedom Caucus. So make sure, I get it that labels are important, but let's just be really specific about who is a part of which group, and that way we can try to keep them kind of separate. But enough of that mediocrity bullcrap. On to some more. Vivek Ramaswamy had an excellent post on X yesterday, and it's this is one that really resonates with me because I have had this feeling for a really long time. But Ramaswamy said that the U.S. has venerated mediocrity over excellence. And I think that all you need to do is look at our education system to determine that. And just look at Wyoming. We spend pretty much, we are almost at the top of the scale on spending per student. And if we're not on the top, it's like we're like number 2 or number 3, but we're right around $20,000 per student. And yet all of our test scores are pretty well dead set right in the middle. We're ranked like 25th, 26th, 24th. But we're right in the middle, which means that we are mediocre at best. We're not really excelling, and it's complete bullcrap that the more money you spend, the better your test scores are. That's not even close to the truth. But if you listen to the Wyoming Education Association, of course, they're a teachers union, and they're going to claim that, yeah, we're doing a fantastic job, and nobody is better than Wyoming schools. Of course, they're going to claim that. All of the education acolytes in the Wyoming legislature, the folks that say we should spend more money and how dare you try to get rid of pornography that's in libraries or get a handle on the DEI and critical race theory that is being taught to students. How dare you do that? Those folks, they claim that, yeah, Wyoming schools are fantastic, when the truth is we're pretty much in the middle. And so I think that there is absolute evidence in Wyoming that we have venerated mediocrity. But this piece comes from Breitbart, and I quote, President Donald Trump's MAGA supporters and his Silicon Valley donors are suddenly fighting against online investors policy. On December 27th, Vivek Ramaswamy supercharged the dispute by arguing that Americans must adopt a more aggressive and competitive culture. I can't disagree with that. And I quote, from Vivek Ramaswamy, the reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans, and Native is in quotation marks, so he's talking about people that were born here, isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit, a lazy and wrong explanation. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers, and if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront it. Truth. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer. That doesn't start in college. It starts young. And, the common refrain on this one is the participation trophy thing, that everybody gets a trophy, everybody gets a ribbon, everybody is unique, and they are excellent in their own unique gifts. I'm sure many of the Cowboy State Politics listeners remember a time in school where everybody got a trophy. It's absolutely ridiculous. Not everybody is the same. And the hard truth of it is that some people are not as skilled as others. Some people are not as smart as other people. That's just a fact of life, but it doesn't mean that those folks who maybe are not as smart as the next one don't have unique gifts to contribute to society. They absolutely do. We absolutely need tradesmen. Maybe you're better suited to be a plumber than to go study history at the university. Maybe you're better suited to be a carpenter. I know a lot of carpenters that are way smarter than I am when it comes to building stuff, that are way more handy with their hands, that are way more skilled in their craft than I could ever imagine being. That doesn't mean that they don't have something to contribute. Back to Ramaswamy. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ, now that has happened for a really long time, or the jock over the valedictorian, will not produce the best engineers. A culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World, or Zach and Slater over Screech in Saved by the Bell, or Stefan over Steve Urkel in Family Matters, will not produce the best engineers. Fact. I know multiple sets of immigrant parents in the 90s who actively limited how much their kids could watch those TV shows, precisely because they promoted mediocrity. And their kids went on to become wildly successful STEM graduates. More movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends. More math tutoring, fewer sleepovers. More weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons. More books, less TV. More creating, less chillin'. More extracurriculars, and less hanging out at the mall. Most normal American parents look skeptically at those kinds of parents. More normal American kids view such of those kinds of kids with scorn. If you grow up aspiring to normalcy, normalcy is what you will achieve. Now close your eyes and visualize which families you knew in the 90s or even now who raised their kids according to one model versus the other. Be brutally honest. Normalcy doesn't cut it in a hyper-competitive global market for technical talent. And if we pretend like it does, we'll have our asses handed to us by China. This can be our Sputnik moment. We've awakened from our slumber before, and we can do it again. Trump's election hopefully marks the beginning of a new golden age in America, but only if our culture fully wakes up. A culture that once again prioritizes achievement over normalcy, excellence over mediocrity, nerdiness over conformity, hard work over laziness. That's the work that we have cut out for us, rather than wallowing in victimhood and just wishing or legislating alternative hiring practices into existence. I'm confident that we can do it. This is exactly the posture that we need to adopt as a culture, that we need to venerate excellence. And in some cases, we need to look down upon those who, and that's probably the wrong way to put it. We need not encourage normalcy. We need to stop encouraging mediocrity. We need to stop encouraging our young people to be like everybody else. We need to push them to succeed, push them to excel. And it's not that you have to demand that a certain level of performance. And let me give you a great example. Okay, I had stepkids at one point, and they were both talented in their own way. I mean, my stepson, though he was autistic, you could hand him a photograph, and he would take it to his bedroom and he'd draw it out with a pencil. And you couldn't, I mean, it would be exactly the same thing you saw in the photograph. Incredible artist. Same thing with my stepdaughter. Both of them were talented in their own way, but they really weren't cut out to study the science textbook or they weren't going to be the valedictorians. When they brought home, their grades, and their grades were, kind of mediocre, my response would be, okay, is this the best you can do, or can you do better? And I would encourage them to do better. But when they brought home grades, if they got the B instead of the A, it wasn't that I came down on them for getting the B and not the A. It was, okay, you tried your best. Now let's work a little bit harder. Another example, my stepson, the autistic boy, he liked to run track. And there was one track meet I went to, and honestly, he ran the half mile, by the way. And he was kind of dogging it, and you could tell. I could tell anyway. And he ended up getting second place. And so when the track meet was over, I was like, hey, good job for getting second place. And I said, I asked him, why were you dogging it on the last lap? And he goes, I was in second place. And I explained to him, I'm like, all right, so you could have done better, but you didn't because you thought second place was good enough. And I said, well, why don't you try a little bit harder and maybe get first place next time? Well, the next track meet, he beat the high school record, and this is when he was in middle school. He beat the high school record by 3 seconds. Now, I'm not a track expert, but 3 seconds, as I've been told, is a lot in a track meet. So my point here is that we need to encourage excellence. We need to encourage our students to try as hard as they can, try to achieve a higher level of success. That's the only way that we're going to succeed in this new competitive, and the way that Vivek Ramaswamy puts it, in this new world. I'm trying not to use the phrase "new world order" because it has such negative connotations to it. But if we want to compete in our culture. If we want to compete in the world at a higher level, we have to push our kids to succeed. And this whole focusing on mediocrity and on stupid graduation rates. And let me tell you the problem with graduation rates. A school can lower their graduation standards as low as they want. And it doesn't really mean anything if you get a bunch of kids that are graduating at a higher level. You can lower your expectations all you want and get kids to graduate, but that doesn't mean that they've succeeded or they've achieved anything. It just means that you've lowered the standard. So rather, what we need to do is push our kids to be the valedictorians or the salutatorians and to try their hardest. Let's go ahead and take a call. We got our friend Jerry from Rock Springs here. How's it going today, Jerry? Did you have a good Christmas?
Hey, I did. I had a really good Christmas. How about you?
Oh, we did. The lovely Christine and I had a fabulous time. I'll tell you about a story from our Christmas a little bit later in the program. But what's on your mind today?
Oh, you was talking about education, and we have to continue to try and do better. And we have to let children and then teenagers and young adults, even if they're close to you and they're important enough to tell them the truth, that no matter if you fail, figure out why you failed.
Exactly.
And don't give up.
Yep. I firmly believe that we learn nothing from winning. Where we learn is from failing. So, when you don't exactly get an A, or you don't win the competition, or you don't win the rodeo event, or whatever it is, you figure out what you did wrong and you don't do it again. And that way, the next time you do a much better job.
Yeah. If you want to know how to do it wrong, just ask me.
There you go.
But the things I did do right, I remember them like yesterday.
Of course. And I loved this piece from Vivek Ramaswamy, because he is absolutely on point, that we've got to get away from teaching our kids that normalcy is okay, that, well, it's okay, you can be like other kids. No, we need to teach our kids to excel, be the best, to try their hardest. I mean, that's the only way that they're going to succeed in life.
Amen. And myself, I see a lot of resemblances in what's happening with President-elect Trump and what happened with Ronald Reagan. Even though I don't agree with everything either one of them have done, but we keep saying, "Oh, it's this man, it's this man." No, it should be statesmen. It should be stateswomen doing this all the time, and every one of them.
I completely agree. Absolutely. And it's one of the reasons why I like, and I don't know if you listen to the video I played from the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, I don't think there's a single thing in there that any Wyoming citizen could disagree with. And yet, because it's so common sense, it's not simplistic, but it makes such perfect sense. I think that's why the left wants to go after it, or at least they're going to try. That, these dumb conservatives, they don't know how to do anything. When the reality is, it's conservatives that, really do know how to succeed. We've been teaching our kids this stuff for a long time.
Yeah. I have a hard time sometimes walking and chewing gum at the same time, but we are being bombarded with so much BS, and we're in a war that, these people are in charge that could do even greater things than they want to do or do, would be able to look at and get the people involved. And I just don't know how they do it.
Well, it's, and honestly, a lot of the things that are happening, and just watching the stuff that high school kids, and in some cases middle school kids do, I just look at them and go, wow, we weren't doing that when I was in school. That's absolutely incredible. A lot of the robotic stuff, and I mean, it's just amazing. Well, the only way that we get to that point is if we push each other to excel.
Yes. Yeah. And make it part of life, not just something you do once in a while. I mean, When I go to the bathroom, man, I use toilet paper if I have to, and I'm going to do it every time.
There we go. I'm coming up on a break, Jerry. Thanks for your call.
Hey,
Have a good weekend.
God bless and Happy New Year.
We'll be back in just a second on Open Line Friday. You can listen to Cowboy State Politics Live every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. on the Independence Network. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Cowboy State Politics is sponsored by FreedomGoldUSA.com. They are the working man's gold company. The economy is in turmoil. The stock market pretty much is out of control, and you never know what's going to happen with your finances or your income. One way that you can shore up everything is by investing in gold and silver. Go to freedomgoldusa.com/David for a free interview to discuss your options and find out if gold or silver is right for you. One more time, that's freedomgoldusa.com/David. Welcome back to the program, Open Line Friday on Cowboy State Politics Live. If you want to be part of the program, the phone number here in the studio is 307-374-8989, 307-374-8989. Open Line Friday. The press, or the mainstream media, still will not admit that Biden is a complete failure and that he's pretty much given up. You know, there's been this whole new thing called quiet quitting. I was never quite understood that, man. If I was going to quit a job, which there's only been one job that I've ever really just quit. But you walk up to your supervisor and say, you know what, pal, I'm done. You can take this job and shove it. But not anymore. No. People who want to quit their jobs, they just stop working. And they stop going to work and they stop showing up without ever doing anything. It's because we're afraid of confrontation. And of course, if you've paid any attention to Cowboy State Politics, I, your illustrious host, have never been afraid of any sort of confrontation. Well, CNN's Wolf Blitzer, he's starting to come around. He's starting to notice that, hey, maybe Sleepy Joe Biden isn't quite awake at the wheel. From Breitbart News, and I quote, while speaking with Representative Hillary Scholten on Thursday's broadcast of CNN's The Communist News Network's Situation Room, host Wolf Blitzer stated that President Joe Biden appears to be missing in action, and President-elect Donald Trump is expanding an aggressive to-do list in his first 100 days, while the current president is keeping a very low public profile. Shortly before the interview with Scholten started, Blitzer stated that, quote, the White House transition is intensifying right now, with just 25 days left until the new Trump inauguration. But President Biden, he seems to be missing in action. Here is old Blitzer himself saying it.
On another sensitive issue, while I have you, Congresswoman, President Biden went on vacation in St. Croix today. He has no public events scheduled tomorrow. He has just 25 days left in his presidency. Why do you think he is seemingly missing in action?
Seemingly missing in action.
Well, I certainly can't speak for the president's schedule. I don't set it. I think
care.
everyone's.
Get off my line. I don't really care what that Democrat has to say. But Wolf Blitzer says that the president is seemingly missing in action. He's not really missing in action. He's not really not showing up to work. He's not really not being the president. He's seemingly missing in action. Absolute bullcrap. And it's the same thing that we get from all of these Democrats. They're still covering for Biden. I mean, and I don't know why. I mean, even if you're a Democrat, you could look at this destructive, complete failure of a presidency and just say, there's no reason for us to even support this guy anymore. I mean, at this point, I figured that they would just move on to just attacking Trump and forget that Biden was ever the president. That would serve them far better than trying to defend every bullcrap thing that this administration has done. But nope. They are so ideologically dogmatic in their democratic beliefs that they have to continue to defend Joe Biden because at one point, Joe Biden was their guy. And they can't admit, even for once, that they ever got it wrong. And if they did, maybe people would start watching them again. And this is the whole reason why when I make a mistake on the program, when I tell you something that's not true, on the very next show, I lead with my mistakes. I make sure that hey, I screwed up on this and I correct it. And that's what builds credibility, when you admit that you've made a mistake and that you correct it. But the mainstream media will never do that. How many elections did they have the polling all wrong? Like completely wrong. They told you one thing and the election turned out to be something totally different. But it has been at least 3 elections in a row that they've done that. Now, if they would just come out and say, whoops, we got it wrong, we'll try better next time, maybe more people would listen to them. But you'll notice that they're not doing it. And Wolf Blitzer, no, he is not going to be one to entertain that at all. And another thing that they're never going to admit is that this whole global warming thing is a bunch of bullcrap. Now, you remember a long time ago when people like Al Gore were saying, in a few years, there isn't going to be any more Arctic ice. It is all going to melt away, and we're going to lose places like Florida and Los Angeles and Hawaii. Hawaii's probably going to be underwater. You remember that whole thing? Well, from zerohedge.com, this doesn't quite fit the mainstream media, but the latest Arctic ice data shows that it is 26% larger than in 2012. And this was pointed out by Tony Heller. He took to X to highlight the climate misinformation and disinformation campaigns waged by the far-left corporate media on the global public. Heller referenced a 2007 BBC News article entitled Arctic Summers Ice-Free by 2013. Which warned readers of the supposed threat of that the latest modeling studies indicate northern polar waters would be ice-free in summers within just 5 to 6 years. The BBC's article's baseless claim was designed to instill climate fears across the public to ram through a radical degrowth climate agenda across the Western world. And so, it is an entirely problematic thing because for a long time, people like Al Gore, they were engaging in this scary hysteria about the climate, that all of the polar ice caps are going to melt and it's going to happen in 4 to 5 years. But the truth is, the latest modeling indicate that the northern polar waters were not ice-free in 5 to 6 years. In fact, there's 26% more ice than there was. But it's just another example of how the left tells you lies, and then they refuse to admit when they got it wrong, when the data absolutely shows you that what they're saying is absolute and complete bullcrap. It's the same thing I was talking about earlier with the Democrats, how they should just admit when they're wrong and then move on and start doing their job. But they won't do that because it's all dogmatic, ideological belief. It is just like a religion, and they're never going to give it up. We'll finish up the program in just a second. Christmas is over, and all of the fun holiday cheer has been had. And what are we all left with? Frigid Wyoming weather. Below freezing temperatures that you still have to go out in. That's right, you do have to go back to work at one point or another. And not to scare you, but think about this. Every single morning, you get to scrape the ice off of your windshield. Now, while I can't do anything with that, I can make sure that your feet stay nice and toasty warm while you're doing it. All you have to do is order a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. And to get you a pair of them, go to the website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you're not going to be disappointed. Wyoming is one of the most sought-after places to live. There's a lot of people that want to move to our great state. And if you're thinking about selling your house to one of them, you need a real estate agent that you can trust. That agent is Rebecca Bextel at Compass Real Estate. She's lived in Jackson for almost 20 years and has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market. Last year, she sold almost $25 million worth of property. So if you're thinking of buying or selling, give Rebecca a call. Her phone number is 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Watch out! Cowboy state politics is only going to get stronger. The program is only going to continue to expand. From every county in this state to every state in this country, it's Cowboy State Politics. And it is Open Line Friday today on the program. The number here in the studio is 307-374-8989. Open Line Friday. We've got about 8 minutes left in the program. But during the Christmas holiday, our good President Joe Biden, sleepy Joe Biden, soon-to-be former president, complete failure of a president. Well, he celebrated another holiday during Christmas, and it's one that is entirely made up by a Marxist. That's right, my friends. President Joe Biden celebrated Kwanzaa. And he said in his statement that millions will commit themselves to the 7 principles. But he didn't even mention that it's not a real holiday and that it was invented by a Marxist and a Marxist criminal at that. And I quote, President Joe Biden is one of many Democrat politicians who said a few words celebrating the black nationalist holiday that was created, Kwanzaa. Quote, this week millions will gather with their families to light the 7 candles of the Meshua Saba and commit themselves to the 7 principles from unity and self-determination to faith, Biden said in a post on Thursday. Quote, Jill and I hope that your Kwanzaa is blessed with peace and light this season, he added. But Biden made no mention of the Marxist roots of Kwanzaa that was created by Maulana Karenga, founder of the United Slaves, which opposed the Black Panthers. He did mention the 7 principles, which, as Ann Coulter has pointed out, are the same 7 principles of the Symbionese Liberation Army. The esteemed Cal State professor Karenga's invented holiday is a nutty blend of schmaltzy 60s rhetoric, black racism, and Marxism. The 7 principles of Kwanzaa are the very same principles of the Symbionese Liberation Army, another invention of the worst generation. Kwanzaa's 7 principles are as follows. Unity, self-determination, collective work. Now, that doesn't sound Marxist at all. Cooperative economics. I wonder what that is. It could have been socialism. Could it be? I don't know. Purpose and faith. Creativity and faith. In fact, Kamala Harris even put out a video about Kwanzaa. Listen to this.
Happy holidays, everyone. I wanted to take a moment to send my warmest wishes to everyone celebrating Kwanzaa. Like so many other holidays, we will be celebrating Kwanzaa a little differently this season in our home. We'll be doing it over Zoom.
Oh.
You know, my sister and I, we grew up celebrating Kwanzaa.
I bet you did.
Every year, our family and our extended family, we would gather around across multiple generations. And we tell stories. The kids would sit on the carpet, and the elders would sit in chairs, and we would light the candles, and of course afterwards have a beautiful meal.
Beautiful meal when they were children. The problem is, when Kamala Harris was a child, Kwanzaa had not been invented yet. It wasn't a holiday, nor is it a holiday today. From the Federalist, Kwanzaa is a fake holiday invented by a criminal Marxist. And I quote, spanning from December 26th to the first day of January is Kwanzaa, the invented African-American holiday celebrated solely by white liberals and clueless public school teachers, overblown by leftists claiming the holiday has immense cultural significance. A survey by the National Retail Foundation discovered that only 1.6% of Americans celebrate Kwanzaa. The holiday was created in 1966 by Ron Karenga, who renamed himself Malana Karenga, the founder of the United Slaves, a violent rival organization to the Black Panthers. He created the holiday for Black Americans and derived the name Kwanzaa from the Swahili phrase Matunda y Kwanzaa, meaning the first fruits of the harvest. That's about the extent of the deep African roots of the official Kwanzaa website. The history of the holiday and Karenga have been seamlessly suppressed by leftists who find the facts inconvenient. Since few know its origins, the current definitions of the celebration are usually nonsensical and made up, just like the holiday itself. But no holiday could be complete without a discussion of how the left tries to destroy all of our institutions and our own Christian traditions. And, there's a song that I play every Christmas, and I kind of neglected it this year. Usually I play it before Christmas, but here we go. This was played on the Glenn Beck program a really long time ago, before he had a television show. Happy Rama Hana Kwanzmas.
Have a Ramahana Kwanzmas, it's the PC time of year. Every holiday displayed because of morbid fear. Happy Ramahana Kwanzmas, yeah, we know the name is queer. Oh, good golly, can't offend nobody on Christmas this year. Oh no, the Eskimos need a holiday. We'll get right back to you when we think of one for gay. Happy Ramahana Kwanzmas, what a time for winter cheer. But if you see a Christmas tree, you'll hear Christmas cheers. Screw you, ACLU, for winning the 12 million in your lawsuit versus Santa and his elves. Have a Ramahana Kwanzmas, and everyone must now adhere. So by golly, don't hang up that holly on Christmas this year.
Yeah, and no more sleigh bells either.
Oh, exactly right. I mean, if Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Ron Karenga can invent their own holiday, so can we. Ramahana Kwanzmas. That way we just get everybody involved, and I mean, we can just hit the holiday all in one shot, and we don't have to worry about all the others. It's as ridiculous as Kwanzaa, and I mean, and just think about all of the politicians that put out messages on Kwanzaa about a stupid, made-up Marxist holiday. But I mean, it shouldn't surprise you in any way, shape, or form, because nothing about the Democrats is really true. I mean, from their rhetoric to their beliefs, it's all made up. Their ideas don't really work in the real world. Well, I mean, they work until you run out of other people's money to spend. But I mean, it's absolutely bizarre. And I got about a minute left, so I'll go ahead and tell you the story of what happened during Christmas at our house. I had bought the lovely Christine. She is obsessed with John Bon Jovi, so I bought her a John Bon Jovi album. The problem is my record player broke, so I had to get a new record player. So I ordered one off of Amazon, but I didn't think that it was going to be delivered in time. So I went on Facebook Marketplace and I bought another record player. So I was all set. I had the Christmas records ready. I had the John Bon Jovi record ready. And then I got home and I looked underneath the Christmas tree and I said, uh-oh, I bet that is a record. And she wouldn't have bought a record unless she also bought a record player. So at the end of Christmas, we ended up having 3 record players. But that's okay. I'm going to send one back, and the other one I'll sell, and I'll keep the one the lovely Christine bought me. It's much nicer. Well, we've burned up another busy open line Friday. Have a good weekend, and don't miss weekend update coming up tomorrow. But for now, from the base of the Bighorns, I'm David Iverson, and this is Cowboy State Politics.